Today is Monday, June 26th. What to know about an armed mutiny in Russia that ended as quickly as it began. We'll tell you what it means for the future of Russia and its war in Ukraine. Also, a train crash has led to extra testing in the Yellowstone River. We'll tell you what happened. Plus, one of the world's largest religious gatherings is underway now. Google is launching a new type of search result that pulls from sites like Instagram and TikTok. And 4 people are starting an experiment to see what it's like to live on Mars. Those stories and more news to know in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Russian President Putin just faced his first challenge in the more than 2 decades he's been in power. Over the weekend, Putin faced what looked like an attempted coup from a man who used to be his ally. We're talking about Yevgeny Prigozhin, who leads the Wagner Group mercenary fighters. He ordered his troops to march on Moscow, and on the way, they were able to take over regional military headquarters. With that, the Russian military scrambled to defend Russia's capital, setting up checkpoints, digging out sections of highways, and pulling back thousands of fighters from Ukraine to help. The Wagner troops still apparently got about 2/3 of the way to Moscow without much opposition. But after less than 24 hours, Putin's government made a deal with Prigozhin. As part of that deal, Prigozhin and his troops will not be punished. But he is going to have to go into exile in Belarus, and his fighters are going back to Ukraine, where they've been fighting alongside regular Russian soldiers. That conflict is actually what started this uprising in the first place. Prigozhin has been upset, saying Russia's military has not provided Wagner's soldiers enough ammunition. And then on Friday, he accused the military of actually attacking Wagner camps. So he demanded the head of Russia's armed forces be removed. Though American intelligence suggests Prigozhin has been building up his forces near the Russian border for some time, not just after an attack on Friday. And Russia's military says it did not attack the camps. Either way, the rebellion seems to be over now. Putin says he made a deal so he could give priority to the conflict in Ukraine, and the fighting there continues this morning. But Ukraine's President Zelensky said the weekend revolt exposed weakness in the Russian government, showing that it's actually easy to capture Russian cities. As for what's next, there's some speculation the Russian military head might actually be replaced as Prigozhin demanded, and Wagner troops are being offered contracts with the actual military. But things aren't exactly expected to go smoothly. American Secretary of State Antony Blinken told ABC News, quote, "I doubt we've seen the final act." To be continued. There's now a widespread investigation underway to figure out what exactly happened to the tour vessel that imploded on its way to the Titanic, killing all 5 people on board. The U.S. Coast Guard is leading the investigation with help from other agencies in the U.S., Canada, France, and the U.K. Canadian police say they're specifically looking into whether any laws were broken. The Coast Guard cannot press charges itself, but can make recommendations to prosecutors to do so. This all comes as more questions are coming up about the vessel's design. Experts have been coming forward saying that for years they've been warning the American company behind the Titanic trip about safety concerns, though the company is asking people to not rush to judgment over the implosion until all the facts are gathered. Already, investigators have mapped out the accident site, and now they're working to recover items from the seafloor, though it's expected to be a complex investigation that will likely take time. A big crash in Montana has prompted a wide-scale federal response. 10 freight train cars plunged into the Yellowstone River over the weekend. No one was immediately hurt, but the train was carrying hazardous materials, and some spilled into the water. Officials say they've been testing the waterways and treatment facilities in Yellowstone and have, quote, found no negative impacts. They say the hazardous material is being diluted by an especially swollen river. But testing continues this morning anyway. And people nearby are being asked to conserve water just in case. Officials are also investigating exactly how this crash happened. We know the train cars derailed and a bridge over the river collapsed. But for now, it's not clear which happened first or what led up to either. People in the Midwest are now dealing with the aftermath of a tornado outbreak, and even more severe storms are expected today. Tornadoes were seen across Indiana yesterday, and dozens of homes were damaged. Thankfully, no one was reported seriously hurt. Today, the storm threat has moved east, and 86 million Americans are under a severe weather threat. The National Weather Service is forecasting strong to severe thunderstorms from New York City to Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and Philadelphia. The threats include damaging winds, large hail, and even more tornadoes. All the while, there are heat advisories and warnings in effect for most of the southern U.S., from Arizona to Tennessee. Texas is still seeing some of the worst heat, with the scorching temperatures expected to last for the next several days. We have much more news for you still ahead. But first, a break to thank our sponsor, AG1. A friend asked me recently if I really drink AG1 as part of my morning routine, since I've been talking about it here on the show. And I was happy to tell her yes, and that I really do reach for my tea or coffee less often because drinking AG1 makes me feel energized and ready to take on the day. I've also noticed improved digestion. If you haven't heard me talk about this yet, AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that can replace your multivitamin and probiotic. And it's just in one simple, drinkable habit. 1 scoop of AG1 mixed with water, that's it. I like to put ice and a splash of lemon juice in it, but see what works for you. And it's one of the easiest habits I've started since it makes me feel good overall, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something good for my body. AG1 uses a science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food-sourced nutrients. So if you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. More than 2.5 million Muslims from around the world made it to the holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia for what is shaping up to be the largest Hajj pilgrimage in history. Hajj has always been one of the world's largest religious gatherings, but the last few years have been restricted because of COVID-19. Now that all restrictions are lifted, this pilgrimage is expected to break records. All Muslims who are physically and financially able are supposed to complete it at least once in their lifetimes. They spend 5 days carrying out a set of rituals meant to wipe away sins and bring them closer to God. The end of Hajj coincides with the Islamic holiday of Eid al-Adha. It's also known as the Festival of Sacrifice, and that starts tomorrow. In the U.S., most Muslims will celebrate by visiting mosques and hosting large community gatherings. Many will also exchange gifts, make special meals, and give to charity. Starting last night, a group of volunteers started a year-long experiment to see what it's like to live on Mars. But they're not actually going to Mars. The team is spending the next year in isolation inside a 1,700-square-foot 3D-printed habitat at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. 4,000 people actually applied to be part of this experiment, but only 4 were chosen. They include a biomedical scientist, a structural engineer, a physician, and a biochemist. And each one is expected to have to use their special skills. Over the next 378 days, they'll be given problems to solve on their own, like equipment failures and limited resources. They'll have to handle tasks like tending to crops, conducting scientific research, and performing simulated Mars walks. And all the while, their health and performance will be constantly monitored. NASA is aiming to launch the first human crew to actual Mars in the late 2030s. In the U.S. right now, there are fewer homes on the market than ever before on record. That's according to a new report from the real estate agency Redfin. It said as of last month, there were 1.4 million homes available. And that means the housing supply is now down nearly 37% from pre-pandemic times. As Fox Business points out, many buyers and sellers are hesitant to jump into the market because of high interest rates. Redfin says nearly every homeowner in the U.S. has a mortgage rate under 6% right now, but the rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage is now averaging higher than that. So people are holding on to their homes. The thing is, even though mortgage rates are high now, home prices aren't necessarily coming down because of the shortage. Though analysts do say prices might fall later this year as interest rates keep going up. Plus, more homes will be available since new home construction is also seeing a 3-decade high. With that, expect more buyers on the market soon, too. There's a new search feature available on Google that's meant to give you different perspectives from regular people, and it's called Perspectives. Google says the filter will give you videos, images, and written posts people have shared on discussion boards, Q&A sites, and social media platforms. So think TikTok videos, Reddit posts, and tweets. But Google says it's only going to give you the option to see perspectives when they might be relevant. You'll also see details about the content creators behind the videos, posts, and images, like their name, profile pic, and information about the popularity of their content. Google executives have been talking for a while about how more young people now start some of their searches on places like Instagram or TikTok, not necessarily Google search. So this could be Google's response to those changing trends. Last night's BET Awards honored 50 years of hip-hop and some of the industry's biggest stars. Because of the writer's strike, the 4-hour show was mostly packed full of musical performances, including some that were pretty emotional. There was a Migos reunion, even though one of the 3 bandmates, Takeoff, died back in November. So Quavo and Offset performed with a light beaming in between them. Patti LaBelle performed a tribute to Tina Turner, who passed away last month. And Busta Rhymes accepted a Lifetime Achievement Award with a moving speech. He spoke about approaching other rappers with love and kindness, encouraging all his colleagues to love each other. Some of the other big awards of the night include Album of the Year, that went to Beyoncé's Renaissance, and Best New Artist, which went to Coco Jones. Well, that's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, we have an announcement. We are launching our first chance to buy the Newsworthy merch, as in shirts and hoodies, mugs, cell phone cases, notebooks, and more. They have our logo in a variety of colors to choose from, and a couple of our go-to lines like, "You ready? Let's do this." This is an awesome way to show your support of the show. And to celebrate this launch, you can get up to 35% off all the Newsworthy gear this week only. We are giving a first look to the Newsworthy insiders over the next few days, and then it'll open up to everyone later this week. So insiders, click the link in the show notes of today's ad-free episode or in today's email to check out all the options and buy. If you're not an insider yet, you can become one and get immediate access. Go to thenewsworthy.com/insider. Thank you again for listening and for supporting this podcast. Okay, now back to Money Monday. So more workers than ever before are contributing to their retirement accounts. But unfortunately, their account balances are going down. The Vanguard Group, which tracks about 5 million retirement accounts, found the average account balance for 401ks and 403bs was about $113,000 in 2022. That's down nearly $30,000 from the previous year. So what's the issue? Well, the stock market struggled through its worst year since the Great Recession, while at the same time, more Americans have been tapping their retirement accounts to cover a financial emergency. Of course, how much money you need in your account depends on your income, your lifestyle, and your goals for retirement. Certified financial planners often recommend people start saving early in their careers and set aside 12 to 15% of their income every year pre-tax if they can. But that is way more than many people save. Vanguard found the average is more like 7%. On the bright side, reports also say people who made any kind of regular contributions when stocks were cheap could see large gains in the future. Because another piece of advice from the experts is that retirement saving is a marathon, not a sprint. All right, thank you so much for listening today. We will be back with much more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.